Welcome to another edition of Harness Central. I'm Harold Howe, and we're up near Rockwood, Ontario with Anna Meyers, who operates Emerald Ridge Farm with your husband Pat, but you're also president of the Standardbred Breeders of Ontario. Anna, let's cut right to the chase. What is the real status of breeders as we speak on May 3rd in the province of Ontario?
I would say that we're on life support. Every day that passes by, we're sustaining damage. We have some irreparable damage, and we're hoping that we can see a solution. And it's affecting all aspects of our business, right from the stallions that are standing here. There are people that are canceling bookings because of the uncertainty of of what's happening in the province. We've got mayors that have been relocated to other jurisdictions where the programs are solid. And we probably will be having people that are going to be reluctant to pay their service fees until they have a sense of what's going to happen with the industry. And that's revenue that's required for a lot of breeding farms to carry on and function. So there's some very serious things happening right now.
All right. Everybody knows the breeders are right on the front line. People racing the horses aren't at the moment. They've got till end of March 2013. The breeders are taking it right in the ear, so to speak. We've talked about the breeding season, but you've got another potential serious hit coming up, yearling sales. They're several months away, but September isn't that far. If there is this uncertainty, what's your prediction about yearling sales?
This is such an important issue. We need to get answers and get something established over the next 2 months, I would say, if a breeding industry is going to exist. Right now, we've got people that are tremendously worried about the value of these yearlings, what kind of a market there's going to be for them. And if we don't figure that out, I don't see a breeding industry surviving this. So it's critical that we find some solutions. We've got these horses that were planned for several years ago. The breeding industry has a very slow reaction time just because of the nature of the business. So unfortunately, the decisions that we make today, we don't have a saleable product for another 3 years down the road, and then you need 2 years worth of racing opportunities beyond that to make it attractive for someone to buy. So it creates a tremendous burden on the industry when we get announcements that affect us because we can't react that quickly.
If there's still this uncertainty and we get into October, and just using the Forest City sale as an example, would the average be 50% of what it was last year?
I think it'd be worse than that. I think that if we don't have answers by October, I think it's done. And the unfortunate thing is that the industry interfaces. The breeding sector, yes, it's taking it on the front lines, but it's going to affect horse supply. It's going to affect the quality of horses, the ability of racetracks to have a good quality betting product. And so it's all interwoven, and that's why it's really important that we start getting some answers and get some solutions in place.
All right. The provincial budget amounted to a tempest in a teapot. We're hearing this lovely phrase, transitional funding. What the devil does that mean from a breeding perspective? Or from any perspective, I guess.
We want those answers ourselves. Transition funding could be a good thing, but at this point in time, we don't know what transition funding means. There's some rumors circulating out there about what that looks like, but we officially don't know what it is, how much it is, how it would be handled, where it would be used. And we've got a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And that's what we need desperately over the next couple of months.
Well, we know by definition transition means short term, something to bridge. A bridge to what, though? The sire stakes clearly is the cornerstone of everything for racing in Ontario. I know the overnight guys may not agree with that, but they're wrong. We don't have the sire stakes, you don't have anything. How much of a cut, if there is a cut in the sire stakes, could racing live with?
We're taking a strong look at it to sort of see how we can run it the most efficient way possible. There's not, there's some areas that we can cut in, but for the most part, there's not a lot of fat in that budget. And so, the challenge is making it still a viable industry, an industry where people want to stay breeding horses, and an industry where horsemen want to still continue investing in yearlings. They're putting their money down, and it's a longer-term investment. It's a risky investment in the sense that they've got to sit there and figure out what kind of talent they're dealing with, be patient, put a lot of input costs into it, and so it has its challenges. But we do need to keep the integrity of the Ontario Sire Stakes program. It has tremendous benefits. I think we were just starting to see a lot of the benefits from the Ontario Mare Residency Program in terms of investment being made and horses being placed here in the province, stimulating the economy, creating jobs, and we need to have that continue moving forward for whatever the industry is going to look like.
All right. We had an interview with Hugh Mitchell at Western Fair a week ago, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said, look, status quo, gone. Forget it, get over it. There's going to be a new order. The challenge for racing is to have this new order, which may be a new organization and maybe a working title of Horse Racing Ontario, and move to a self-governance position. Now, that is a blue sky idea. I don't think anybody would agree with that. But Hugh's argument is that, I'm putting words in his mouth, but he's basically saying the game's on its hands and knees. If it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen now. And the people racing the horses and the people breeding the horses and the track operators that are left better accept the fact there's going to be less of us. It's going to be more competitive. There'll probably be less money. There'll be less race days and so forth. But we have to pull together to make the best of it. Can you live with an umbrella statement like that?
I think that as much as we don't all like change, and it's scary because we don't know what it's going to change to, the fact is if this industry is going to survive, change is coming, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to adjust with it so that we have a viable, sustainable industry. There's going to have to be efficiencies. There are going to be I know there's going to be fewer breeders in this game. For example, there are a lot of people, if you look at our demographics, we've got a lot of people that have invested a lot of money over the years. This whole experience over the last couple of months has been very tough to take. And there are going to be some people close to retirement age that say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to move on to other things. So there already is a natural contraction. We expect that breedings are down significantly in this province because of the uncertainty. So we're going to see a contraction. We know that. We don't like it, but it is happening. And so with that comes building a structure that can be efficient, that can make decisions. I think one of the greatest things that I've seen in the last number of years is the industry. It's challenging, and it's not always easy. But if you have the right people at the table, there are people that can look at the big picture and how the breeding sector, having a viable industry there, is important to the horsemen and is important to the racetracks. And you've seen that relayed in a lot of media.
I've had it argued to me that the breeders have far more leverage than they seem to realize. You are the start of the supply chain. If there's no bananas, there's no banana split. And we have to have a vibrant industry supplying horses because the Americans can't do it all. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And I wish we had more leverage. Otherwise, we'd have this solved by now. I think it's a real critical time right now. We need to deal with this immediately and stop the bleeding because, as I mentioned early on, we are on life support. And it's not just the breeders. It will affect it'll resonate throughout the whole industry. So we need to find some viable solutions, and that probably means give and take. It means being able to negotiate. It means being able to talk and listen to other people's perspective and do what's best. Do what's best for the industry so that it can come out of this the best way possible.
When I use the word leverage, what I'm thinking of is that when this, let's just talk about the transitional money, if X number of dollars come, whatever that is, everyone has to accept the fact that it's not all going to be plowed in, or a big amount plowed into overnight racing. It's not going to just go into sire stake purses. The breeders have to be shored up, for want of a better word. I know you have a vested interest in agreeing with me, but can you argue against that idea?
Absolutely not. We do have to shore it up because we've got people right now that even if everything worked out tomorrow, have taken a huge financial hit from having to wait the last 8 weeks since the announcements come down. You can't undo that damage. It's happened. What we're looking at is stopping the bleeding and then figuring out how we can keep people still engaged, because there are a lot of people that are gun shy after this experience who are going to be a little hesitant to make a long-term investment if there aren't some assurances in place that you have adequate time to respond. As I mentioned with breeders, we need about a 5-year lead time, and we need some assurances in place to have that confidence that people are going to stay in and continue investing.
Yeah. What do you say to the people who say, you know what, just recently Oriah had a nice pleasant dinner with provincial members of Parliament. Complete waste time, the deal is done, the die is cast, this government is not going to change its position. Our only move is to negotiate behind closed doors, to convince them that unless they're going to dig a hole and completely bury the racing industry, there has to be some other funding. It's not going to be slot machine revenue. They've made that very clear. That to try and argue against that is just a waste of time. Does that resonate with you at all?
I didn't feel that was a waste of time. I mean, there's no doubt that negotiations need to take place, and we need to sort things through. But what dawned on me in taking part in that exercise is how we need to explain to people and to government.
Excuse me to interrupt. Why does it matter what the public thinks? Because they're out of the equation. You know, the Premier and his immediate advisors and so forth, they're making the decisions. They don't seem to care what the public thinks based on the way they deal with green energy and a whole bunch of other issues. You know, they're taking the view, we're elected, we'll make the call.
That may be true to a certain extent, but I do think that it does matter what the public thinks. For example, we've had a number of people come out and interview us about the horse breeding industry in the last little while. A lot of them knew nothing about the breeding industry, the investment. They've come out on the farm. They notice that, the farrier's pulled away in his truck. They notice the number of people walking around performing different functions that are associated with the breeding farm. They see the FedEx courier come up in the driveway and pick up the boxes to take them out. And a lot of them have no idea about how a farm like this is basically a business onto itself and the impact. And so I think it's important that people know that, and it's also important for government to know the inner mechanics. And I think probably as an industry, and I think we haven't done a good enough job, so that they know exactly some of the challenges that breeders are facing. Probably on the outside, they thought, well, a year's a lot of time. We don't have a year. We've only got a few months because right now we've got an investment that is in serious jeopardy, and we need to sort that out to make sure that it's not a financial bloodbath come September or October, because it will jeopardize the whole entire industry. And so I think in telling the story, while it might not be with a key decision maker, I think that story is an important story to tell, and I think that we need to also celebrate in a lot of the things that are working that are really good. The fact that we are attracting investment here in the province, that we have people that choose to put their money here, and I think we need to be telling the good story that's probably one point moving forward. We need to tell the good stories, the investment, what's working in our industry, instead of just waiting when there's a problem. And I think that communication piece is critical.
So in conclusion, what, in the opinion of breeders, is their next step? What can they do within their control other than finish off the breeding season in the next 6 weeks here?
I think right now our key objective is to find funding for the Ontario Sire Stakes program and solidify that for the horses that have already been planned for. We can't undo them. This is not like chopping down an apple tree or apple orchard or changing the type of crop that you put into a field. This is about animals that were planned for a long time ago, and we need to take that into consideration and do the responsible thing to make sure that we've got a place for them moving forward. And so what we need to do is we need to find some solutions, and whether that's in the form of transition funding while we build a new model, whether that's a separate pool of money that's earmarked for the breeding industry to get us through this period of time, whatever shape or form that takes place in, we need to get that in place and soon.
One final thought. What about a class action suit and sue the government? The breeders I'm talking about.
I'm not going to lie to you, Harold. I mean, there are a lot of people that have asked about that, and at this point in time, I think when you're talking about a class action lawsuit, to me that's a last resort. That says that everything's done, over, industry has collapsed, and that's your final recourse. We have not gone that route and feel that it's still too early. It's not to say that it's not in the realm of possibilities if things don't work out. We don't want to go through that route. We want to have a viable, sustainable industry. And so our hope is, it's not to say that couldn't happen, but I think at this point we're still trying to be optimistic that something's going to work out. We just can't leave things in the state that they're at.
Point well taken. Thanks very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Harold Howe with Anna Meyers, giving you the Harness Racing Edge.